contemplating the idea of ego today and just remembering some of the things that Sri Ramakrishna said, and then cross-referencing it also with some of the things that Eckhart Tolle has said, and coming up with some interesting ideas around that. Eckhart Tolle says that the ego is the unobserved mind that runs your life when you are not present as the witnessing consciousness, the watcher. So it's a very interesting idea that ego basically is ignorance, meaning that it's the mind unwatched, which means it's the self forgotten. And that it's the thing that runs your life because you identify with it. And the interesting thing is that when Ramakrishna went looking for his ego, he said it was very much like peeling an onion. You take off one layer at a time, and he said, I tell you, there's nothing there. I could not find it. And yet, its insubstantiality is also the veil of Maya, that which keeps us from recognizing our own self. And I was thinking, how could this be? And it's this idea of the fact that you can't see yourself. You know, when that young man spoke to Swami Vivekananda and asked him if God existed, and of course Vivekananda said, yes, indeed he does. And the boy says, well, why can't I see him? And Vivekananda says, well, have you seen your face? Can you see your face? And yet you know that it exists. And so this point of perspective, which is the place in mind or body or self where we place our point of perspective, that point from which we stand to observe the rest of the world, that identification with that point of perspective is what we consider to be ourself. That would be our face. That is the part that we cannot objectify, we cannot see. So our own ego is that false identification that happens by not watching, by forgetting ourselves as the observer of mind and joining ourselves to mind. And that state of ignorance then interprets the will of the mind to be our own will, and all of the troubles and stories of the mind to be our own mind. We've heard much of this before, but when you really make an effort, a concerted effort to keep these things in your mind, it makes quite a large difference. In that same discussion where Eckhart Tolle says that ego is the unobserved mind running your life, he also talks about forgiveness and gives a very interesting definition of forgiveness. He says, through forgiveness, which essentially means recognizing the insubstantiality of the past and allowing the present moment to be as it is, the miracle of transformation happens not only within, but also without. A silent space of intense presence arises both in you and around you. This would be that space that I call the shrine. That's where you go in the heart, where love manifests, where love comes into this world from the Absolute, as it were, and manifests as you. And you run that through the mind and project your personality, and on your life goes. But what a beautiful idea that forgiveness is simply the letting go of a past that is describing the moment for you. And through getting rid of that story, getting rid of that past, allowing the moment to be what it is, that this is how we transform as individuals, because we break that story. And the only way to break that story or to end that story is to disidentify with it, which means to return to our knowledge of ourself as the watcher and viewer of mind, separate and apart from it. And through that, reducing our ego, which is defined by not watching the mind and forgetting our nature, forgetting ourself. So all of these things mixing together are quite insightful and quite beautiful and give a very deep meaning to all of these ideals, but also puts a fantastic handle on them for managing them and knowing where to begin the work and how to go about the work. Because that idea of remaining as the watcher and not forgetting, that's the reason for our struggling to have a pure mind. A mind that's pure is a mind that has no me or mine in it, which means no identity of self in it. So all of these come together and tie one big perfect bow on the philosophy of life. So remember yourself, know yourself to be love, existence, and wisdom, the watcher of the mind, separate and apart from everything, the Spirit, ever free, ever pure, ever blissful.